Could you please explain altitude training for me, please? Because I've heard something about that. Like, oh, if you train high up, like it's better somehow. But I don't fully understand like why that is or anything.
Um, Altitude training is based essentially training at very high altitude where the oxygen density is lower, so you will get less oxygen in your body, which means that the uh, the amount of red blood cells will increase um, in order to get more oxygen to your cells, because oxygen is a main factor in creating energy in your body. So the idea is when you are at altitude, you will increase the amount of red blood cells in your body, which transports oxygen. So when you get down to sea level, um, you will have a slight advantage from that altitude. But an altitude camp has only like the amount of like for an amateur or a non-pro, an altitude camp wouldn't really be necessarily because the gains are so little for an amateur that you probably are better off just training normally. But for a pro athlete that has to save seconds or even less than a second, it could be the difference. But one of the issues, the hard parts of altitude training is that you can't do the same training at altitude as you do at sea level because it's so much harder. So when the triathletes go to the first altitude camps, they will start the first weeks with only easy training, and then the last weeks they will start to push hard training because it's so much harder to train at altitude than at sea level. So that's the basic idea, to just take more advantage of the oxygen you breathe in by creating more red blood cells.
And how long do the benefits last? Is it just like a week after, or is it like a lifetime?
Um, it's definitely not a lifetime. It's just some weeks after. So at winter time, you want to altitude camps because you have no races in the near future. But as the season begins, like most pro athletes will go on an altitude camp leading into the season. Um, for triathletes, seasons start in early March, I believe. So they will do an altitude camp leading into the start of the season, and they will probably do altitude in between races also. Um, and in the summer between the first half and the second half of the season. So they'll basically just do it before races because you'll only get the benefits a couple of weeks after the camp, and the benefits are best right after.